There is a hole in the Nevada desert, 1.5 miles across and deep enough to swallow the Empire State Building whole. It stands as one of the 10 deepest open pits on Earth. There is no viewing platform, no sign on the interstate, and no town built around its edge. That single hole has produced 44.4 million ounces of gold. At today's price, close to $200 billion. One property, Eureka County, Nevada. Not a district, not a region, not a projection. A single mine called Goldstrike. And that figure is what came out of it between 1986 and 2018. Poured, stamped, weighed, shipped, sold. There is no estimate anywhere in that number. It is more gold than the Homestake mine in South Dakota produced in 125 years. And Goldstrike did it in about 30. That makes it the biggest gold mine America has ever built. Almost nobody can name it. So, we're going inside, down the pit, into the underground, and into the room at the far end where the gold finally becomes something you can look at. And on the way, 2 questions. How does the largest gold mine in the country's history stay anonymous on ground prospectors walked across for 100 years? And what happened to it on the 10th of August, 2026? The place is in the Carlin Trend, a belt of ground running northwest across Eureka County toward Elko. Sagebrush, alkali flats, a highway, a lot of sky. The nearest real town is Carlin, a few thousand people on the Humboldt River. There is no gold rush here. There was never a gold rush here. That emptiness is the first reason nobody knows this mine. It is not the interesting one. Go back to 1849. The California Trail ran directly through this country. Tens of thousands of people on their way to the Sierra crossed the Humboldt with gold on their minds and walked over the top of the largest gold system the United States would ever find. Not one of them stopped. They weren't careless. They were looking for the only gold anyone knew how to look for. Metal you can see, a nugget in a stream bed, color in a pan, a quartz vein you can follow into a hillside with a pick. That is how every American gold discovery up to that point had been made. And it worked, and it kept working for another 100 years. It does not work here. In the Carlin Trend, there is no nugget, no vein, no color in the pan. There is nothing defined by the method that found everything else. What found it was a paper almost nobody read. In 1960, a USGS geologist named Ralph Roberts published work on the alignment of mining districts in north-central Nevada, an argument that gold in this region followed a deep structural trend and might be sitting in ordinary sedimentary rock where nobody was looking. In the summer of 1961, a Newmont geologist named John Livermore heard Roberts give a talk in Ely. He and a colleague, Alan Coop, went out with a hammer and canvas sample bags to look for gold they had already decided they would not be able to see. In October 1961, they staked the claims that became the Carlin Mine. The first bar was poured in 1965. That explains why it took so long to notice. It does not explain how it turned out to be the biggest. Here is what is actually in the rock. Hot fluid moved through layers of limestone and mudstone underground and dropped gold into them. Not into cracks and veins, but into the rock itself, spread through it like salt stirred into flour. The particles are microscopic, submicron in places, far below what the eye can resolve, and far below what a pan or a sluice box can catch. Geologists call this Carlin-Type gold, after the trend where it was first understood. The industry has a blunter word for what it means in practice: invisible. And invisible gold is not just hard to find, it is hard to get out. The ore here is refractory. The gold is locked inside sulfide minerals, and conventional processing runs it over a table and out the back door as waste. To recover it, you have to destroy the mineral holding it, which is why the word in the title is built. Barrick took full ownership in 1986 and began mining the following year. At first, the easy part was all there was. Oxide ore near the surface was leached on pads that ran out in 1998. Everything underneath it was refractory, and to touch any of it, Barrick had to put a chemical plant in the desert. The first mill was commissioned in 1988, the second in 1992. Between 1990 and 1993, the number of autoclaves, pressurized vessels that cook sulfide ore until it breaks open, went from 1 to 6. Then the ore got worse. Deeper in, it turned carbonaceous as well as sulfidic. Double-refractory, the industry calls it. Rock that not only locks the gold up, but then steals it back out of solution during leaching. Autoclaves cannot handle that. By 1997, Barrick had identified 29 million tons of ore it was unable to process, holding an estimated 11.6 million ounces of gold. By 2000, that figure had grown to 14.3 million ounces, sitting on the property, drilled, measured, and worthless. So, they built a roaster, a $330 million plant that burns the ore in pure oxygen with a gas-cleaning train behind it, scrubbing mercury, sulfur dioxide, and carbon monoxide before anything reaches the air. At peak, it took 950 construction workers and 400 engineers. It came in ahead of schedule and under budget, and it was commissioned in 2000. The gold was never hidden by the desert. It was hidden inside the rock, and then hidden again inside the chemistry. And the only way through was to build the machine that breaks the chemistry. So, let's go inside. Goldstrike is not one mine. It runs three at once. The hole from the opening shot is the Betze-Post open pit. It comes apart in 20-foot benches, and a single blast can break 200,000 tons of rock at once. The road spiraling down the wall is a genuine highway with a speed limit and right-of-way rules, and the trucks working it carry 330 tons a load. From the rim, a truck on the bottom bench is hard to pick out at all, though somebody is driving it. Then there's the part you can't see from the air. Meikle and Rodeo are underground, reached by shaft and ramp, and this is geothermally active country. The rock down there sits between 110 and 140 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough that the workings have to be refrigerated. Before anyone can mine that ore, air is chilled on the surface and pushed down to them. Ore from all three operations is hauled about 3.5 miles to the plants. And this is where the day actually resolves. The autoclaves and the roaster run continuously, because starting and stopping a plant like that costs more than running it. And at the far end of the circuit, in a room the size of a garage, there is a furnace and a mold. A single doré bar off that line weighs around 25 kilograms. You could lift it badly with both hands. It isn't pure. Doré is a rough alloy, and it leaves the property to be refined somewhere else. But it is the first moment in the entire process that anybody can look at the gold to make one. This mine moved several 100,000 tons of rock to pour that single bar. That ratio, a garage at the end of a mile-wide hole, is the whole operation in one image. It is also why nobody made a legend out of this place. There is nothing here a simple photograph explains. The production record is not subtle. By 2003, Goldstrike had already produced 25.6 million ounces. Through the late 90s, it was running above 2 million ounces a year, a rate that on its own would have made it one of the largest gold mines on Earth in any year of the 20th century. Even in 2018, well past its peak, it was the 8th largest gold mine in the world, and the rock is genuinely rich. In 2018, the mine averaged about 7.2 grams of gold per ton. Open pit ore around 3.4, underground ore around 8.5. The average open pit gold mine on this planet works closer to 1 gram. Now, if you know mining, you have objections ready. 3 of them. Isn't Bingham Canyon bigger? As a hole in the ground, yes. Bingham Canyon in Utah is the most photographed excavation in the country and has moved more material than Goldstrike ever will. But Bingham is a copper mine. The gold in it is a passenger, a byproduct pulled off the copper circuit, and nobody would move that rock for the gold alone. It isn't a gold mine that happens to be large. It's a large mine that happens to contain gold. Isn't the Carlin Trend bigger? Yes. Through 2022, the Trend's cumulative production passed 98 million ounces. But that is 26 separate mines, strung along a belt 40 miles long, opened across 60 years by half a dozen companies. A trend is a place. A mine is a thing somebody built, and Goldstrike is the largest single one on it.
They utilize some of the largest earth-moving equipment in the world.
And then there's Homestake in Lead, South Dakota. This is the real comparison. Homestake is the classic American gold mine, 125 years of continuous operation, roughly 41 million ounces, and 370 miles of tunnel reaching 8,000 feet down. The mine that built a town, made the Hearst family fortune, and shaped a state's politics for a century. Nothing here takes that away from it. But Homestake stopped mining in December of 2001 and closed the following year. Homestake produced 41 million ounces across 5 generations. Goldstrike produced 44.4 million in roughly 30 years. and its pumps have never been switched off. That leaves exactly one mine in this country that is both this productive and still running. Nevada Gold Mines is among the largest private employers in the state, offering jobs that support households in counties with very few alternatives. Ranchers work the same watershed. Tribal governments in northern Nevada have contested activity on this ground for decades and are still contesting it. Everyone involved is arguing about the same aquifer, and every one of them needs it. Then Goldstrike stopped being a mine and became part of something with no precedent. On the 1st of July 2019, Barrick and Newmont, the two largest gold companies in the world, and for years each other's most reliable antagonists, folded their northern Nevada assets into a single joint venture called Nevada Gold Mines. Barrick 61.5% and operator Newmont 38.5%. 10 underground mines, 12 open pits, 2 autoclave facilities, 2 roasters, 4 oxide mills, and 5 heap leach plants across the Carlin, Cortez, Turquoise Ridge, and Phoenix districts. The combined operations produced roughly 4.1 million ounces in 2018 alone, and a 200-megawatt solar plant now supplies about 17% of the power that runs it. It did not go smoothly. In February of 2026, Newmont served Barrick a notice of default, alleging it was mismanaging the venture and steering resources toward 4 Mile, a high-grade discovery Barrick had kept out of the deal for itself. They settled on the 10th of August, 2026. Newmont pays Barrick $1.95 billion in cash within 30 days. Barrick puts 4 Mile in. Newmont puts in its Fiberline and Meikle developments. Every dispute closes, and Newmont consents to what Barrick actually wanted, a public offering of its North American gold assets planned before the end of this year. The companies state the expanded complex will hold nearly 100 million ounces of gold. Every ounce of that ends up somewhere ordinary: central bank reserves, wedding rings, and a fraction of a gram in the connectors of the phone you are most likely holding right now. American gold production has been falling for over a decade, and the country consumes considerably more than it digs. Most of what it does dig comes out of one state. A large share of that comes off one trend. And the anchor of that trend is a mine most Americans have never heard of. So let's say it plainly. What makes this America's biggest gold mine ever built? Biggest is checkable, and it survives every comparison. More ounces than any other single American gold mine. More than Homestake managed in a century and a quarter, at 4 times the rate. Not a byproduct operation, not a copper pit with gold in the tailings, and not a district counted as though it were one whole. Gold is the reason the rock moves, and one company moves it. Built is the part people skip. This deposit did not become a mine because somebody found it. It became a mine because somebody spent 30 years building the plant that could open the rock. 6 autoclaves, then a roaster, then a chemistry nobody had used at this scale. Ever should be strange, because the record was set inside a single working lifetime, on ground that had been publicly accessible, legally open, and thoroughly crossed since 1849. The gold was hidden 3 separate times, hidden on the surface under sagebrush with nothing to see from a wagon or a highway, hidden inside the rock in particles too small for any method anyone had, and hidden inside the ore chemistry and sulfides that had to be cooked open before a single ounce came free.